Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back. Well, I guess this is never going to get done unless we get it done. The review for the 2020 MacBook Air M1 base model. Now this has 8 gigs of RAM, a 256 gig hard drive, or SSD for the politically correct. We have an 8-core CPU and 7-core GPU. Okay, so we're going to zoom out now. And we can chit-chat about this, okay? Now, I've had this thing for, I don't know, a little bit. Not massively long, but I've been using it virtually every single day. Either in the Lazy Boy, which is what I wanted a laptop for to begin with, other than other purposes. So my key focus for buying this thing in the first place was actually to prove a point. So that's the majority of the reason why I actually went out and spent the money on it. Secondly, I did want a laptop for sitting on my Lazy Boy watching TV, because though I am a male, I can actually multitask. So I can answer your guys' comments, surf the net, check on stuff, that sort of stuff, and not have to leave my chair and not miss any part of my TV show or movie I'm watching. So, a lot less hassle than coming in here and missing stuff. But I also wanted an emergency-only redundant backup system for my Mac Mini. Now my Mac Mini, of course, is done up to 16 gigs of RAM and a half a terabyte of hard drive space. It is my daily driver machine. So the laptop has its purposes, okay? Right now I've got my email, my Facebook, and yeah, that's about it. Email and Facebook. So 3 tabs worth, 2 email places and my Facebook going in the background while I'm uploading onto YouTube as we speak a whack load of videos. So anyways, and there's a whack load more coming in the next few weeks. Holy cow. Anyways, it's gonna be fun. So in the meantime, I thought we need to do the review on this. Now, I have said before many times, not only on my channel but on many other people's channels that are saying, you know, hey, you know what, 8 gigs of RAM is perfect. It's great. 256 gig hard drive, nah, you don't need anything bigger, just throw an external on there. Well, Kevy got to thinking, maybe we should try some experimenting. So I spent some money, $160 later, for a Type-C NVMe drive that's rated at 1050, and it kind of does about 700 and change read and write. Average, okay? Yet the drive inside is rated for a heck of a lot more, right? So yeah, we're not even getting close to what we should be even seeing, even for the F2 rating. So this is only going to be good for so much in the way of outside editing. That was $160 Canadian. Now, you want to do the math on what it's going to cost you for an external Thunderbolt drive to do this properly for 2K, 4K, 6 and 8K footage without any problems on the outside. It's going to cost you about $950 Canadian. That's what it's going to cost you in order to get it done properly with enough horsepower. Anyways, but hey, to each their own. If you want to learn the hard way, by all means, that is up to you. Anyways, my theory too is I can't have too many hard drives, so why not experiment on a few different types of platforms and see what these things can do or not do. Anyhow, but the problem with the hard drive, of course, in this thing being a 256, is by the time even a basic user gets all their stuff loaded, they're pretty much almost out of hard drive space. You know, because even basic users, I mean, you guys are going to want to play a pile of, you know, those video games from the App Store. Maybe you got a few programs of your own you want to run that will run on an M1 chip, that sort of thing. You know, you got your typing program you're going to want to use, etc., etc. And let's not forget, with Monterey, we can actually run iPad apps as well on these things, which is quite cool. Anyways, so, but with the amount of horsepower under the hood, which is quite a bit, it takes away from the whole base level user experience, because a base level user gets a taste of this power and they're going to be like, I need more. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like a demonic possession in some ways, trust me. Okay? So, when we look at, are these powerful machines? Are they fast? Is the hype true? To a certain point, yes, the hype is exactly true. But it's most truest when you're running M1 native apps. When you're running under Rosetta 2, which is going to run your Intel only based Mac apps, things are definitely feeling like an Intel machine again. Okay? Now, with the processor, you've got 8 cores. Now, 4 of them are performance cores at 3.2 gigahertz, and 4 are efficiency cores at 3 gigahertz. Now, most programs aren't going to want more than the 4 anyways, but there are programs that will. And as soon as you even dab into 1 efficiency core, all 8 cores become efficiency and at 3 gigahertz. Because see, you can take a 3 gigahertz processor and you can make it even slower if you needed to, in some cases, right? So if it was a 3 gigahertz performance and 2.5 efficiency, you could take those 3s and knock them down. So in this case, we have 4 3.2s that are our performance cores. Our efficiencies are 3. Now we can't make the 3.0s any quicker because we don't have Turbo Boost available. It's Apple's silicon chip, right? We also don't have threads anymore because these are not Intel chips. These are Apple's in-house chips, right? So we're missing out on some glory fun here that we were used to having on Intel processors. So what happens here is we go into even one of those efficiency cores. All 8 cores are now running at 3.0 gigahertz because you can easily take a 3.2 and knock it back to 3 or lower if need be, right? Like we just said. So even though we would lose 800 megahertz total by accessing one of these cores, we kind of make up for it because we'll still have a 2.2 gigahertz extra for speed. So you don't really see a major difference here, okay? Now, in desktop computers, of course, we don't want efficiency cores. We don't want efficiency anything. But Apple didn't do it that way. They didn't think that far ahead to do that, or think outside the box enough to go, wait a minute, we should make all the cores performance cores in the desktop machines, and in the laptops we should just do it all efficiency. And that would be practical because people need to save power on their battery on their laptop because laptops are portable, right? So I would get that, if they did it that way, it would be making more sense, okay? And they would still perform really well even if all 8 cores were just efficiency cores in the laptop, and even running at 3 gigahertz, it would be fine. And they would still be monstrous fast machines. Okay, now these things suck for gaming as it is, as you know. I mean, these are the entry-level machines from Apple. Okay, so you've got the Mini, you've got the Air, you've also got the iMac as well. These are the first release M1s, and they are very crippled with that processing system we just talked about, but they're also crippled in another way. You can only go to 16 gigs of RAM tops, which I would strongly advise. Just order it online, okay? Order it from Apple Direct, get the 16 gigs. You're gonna need it, okay? And get at least nothing smaller than a 512 or 500 gig SSD. If you're gonna do photography, like graphic arts and design and a lot of movie editing, and music, then I would probably go towards a terabyte or larger on the internal, and you would be more than fine, okay? For actually a long time to come. Now, base users, you guys would be just coasting along perfectly fine with either 16 by 500 or 16 by a terabyte, But I wouldn't go near that 2 terabyte level, especially in the Air, only because the cost is about $1,000. Now, by the time you get the price of your Air in there, plus the price of just the hard drive, never mind your RAM, I mean, you've already pretty much paid for, without a problem, the new 14-inch M1X Pro, literally. And you would get such a better screen. You get a 4K XDR screen, you get, slightly bigger trackpad, you get a really nice keyboard too, as well. These are nice keyboards, don't get me wrong. But that 4K display, I mean, that is nuts. Plus you're going to get higher performance processors, as well as more GPU cores as well. So, you got to think about the benefits here for money. Try not to max out, a Mac Mini or an Air because there's just no point to it. Even the iMac, there would be no point. You know what I mean? So, 16 by half or 16 by a terabyte, perfectly fine, and you're going to be happy. Okay, well, we hope you're going to be happy anyway. Some people, you just can't make them happy. But now with the GPU core, we have 7 cores in this one. You can get it with 8 cores by 8 cores, not a big deal. We do get upwards apparently to 5 gigabytes worth of accessible video. Now, of course, this is on a pay-as-you-go plan, so as a program demands more video, it gets to access more of your unified RAM. So the problem with this whole all-in-one chip thing is just that. You've got your CPU, your GPU, your RAM, and your SSD drive on one chip. Now this does have some benefits for some things, yes. Okay, it definitely does not benefit gameplay other than cheesier type games, which would be fine for the most part. Some of them are going to be kind of like not going to happen, but most will be fine. So otherwise they're not gaming machines. But when it comes to that whole GPU thing, your video, one of the things I've discovered is that with a game like Minecraft, for example, everybody loves Minecraft. Well, most people play Minecraft. Now, Minecraft is a hog, and it's a rendering hog. It's a video hog. It doesn't take a ton of RAM to run the thing, but it does take a ton of RAM to keep it going as far as the video side goes, right? And even after a couple of minutes of just flying around, we checked our activity monitor for you guys, and we did this test on the Mini. This was prior to the Air, so it does still apply. But even after a couple of minutes of just flying, doing nothing else, we found out that we were using over 8 gigabytes of RAM total. Now, if all you got is 8 gigabytes of RAM, you're kind of going into the hard drive or the SSD for page swapping, or what's really known in the real world, okay, as virtual memory. And this stuff terrorizes your hard drives, okay, or SSD. And it runs them quite hot, which can burn them out, especially with a lot of exposure all the time, okay? And we've heard about stories as well online on YouTube videos. You know, SSDs in the M1s are burning out in like less than a year. Why? Well, if you're going to virtual memory a lot, because 99% of the people out there went and bought base level computers to start with. They didn't think ahead to order 16 gigs of RAM and some more hard drive. Well, guess what? You ran out of RAM really fast like that when you only got 8 gigs. And even iMovie. I was doing an iMovie video for you guys, actually on the air. Yes, I did do it on the air. Now, we did have a very momentary spike to 6 gigs worth of RAM usage, but otherwise we were staying just under the 6 gigs. Now, in that is 4 gigabytes of your RAM is automatically gone as soon as you get to the desktop. You've done nothing, but you've lost half your RAM to the operating system. Now, there's no way around this either, because, you know, if you're running Big Sur, you're chewing a little over 3 gigs, but on Monterey, you're actually chewing around that 4 gigabyte mark, right? Very close, if not slightly over. So this doesn't leave you a lot of RAM for programs. And though you don't see a huge performance hit running one application, okay, and having to go into virtual memory, when you start to run multiple applications, you will. And when you start to run heavy-duty applications, even at one at a time, you are definitely going to see the performance hit. I watched a video the other day with a guy with a couple of MacBook Airs, and one was 8 gig of RAM, one was 16. Same program, same video file, doing the same exact stuff, and the Air that had the 8 gigs of RAM was struggling. It had a lot of glitching, okay, or lag outs. So this is what you don't want to happen if you're video editing, okay? Now, I don't do complex video editing yet, but when I do, I'll be doing it on my Mini. But, you know, even with what I did for you guys, that was still a grand total of 6 gigs worth of RAM pretty much gone. So it didn't leave me much. So if my video would have been any more complex than a quick slice it here, slice it there, put my intro and outro in and save it, I probably would have been pushing pretty close to that 8 gig barrier, or maybe stepping over, especially if I had multiple files going on at once. And serious video editors that are doing some crazy editing to make their really cool, powerful video, they need all the RAM they can get their hands on, and avoiding virtual memory altogether. But you also need hard drive space. Now, unless you're willing to invest in a really expensive Thunderbolt drive, okay, for doing your external editing on, because it's the only way it's going to happen properly, then you should either way still go with a larger internal and just, you know, watch what you do install. Like, you can install a lot of applications on an external drive and run them from there. I do it all the time, and this way it saves you internal hard drive space, so you can free that space up to actually run your video editing stuff. Now, I've got over 330 gigs free on my Mini because I have 2 other drives attached that have the majority of my applications on them, and data files and everything else. And the other thing is, don't keep any important data even on an internal drive. Number 1, you're wasting drive space for nothing. And number 2, if you do get a bad crash, which can happen, okay, you are permanently losing your stuff. The one huge, well, a couple huge problems with SSDs. Number 1, they're not designed to handle virtual memory at them all the time. It's just not a happening deal, okay? Number 2, with SSD drives, okay, when they fail, they're dead. There's no recovery, okay? I have not even heard of any way to recover data off of a dead SSD. In fact, I even tried to recover my buddy's drive for him. He had a 1-year-old Samsung that just up and died for no reason, okay? Like, 0 reason whatsoever. It just, okay? Well, what do you want? I don't like Samsung. That's my thing. He tried it, and yep, it died. So, anyways, but the data is gone. Now, on a hard drive, which are slow, of course, you can recover that data. So if the drive blows up, who cares? Send it into a recovery center, they'll pull the platters out, they'll put them into a new drive unit, and they can recover your data for you, no big deal, okay? SSD, nope. Anyways, there you go. So there are drawbacks to SSDs, but there are a lot of benefits to them, okay? And they are getting better and better made all the time, yes, but they still are not designed to handle virtual memory at them, and you're still trying to run your programs off these things at the same time too, and it's like kind of like a hard drive, and everything starts farting and bogging like crazy, and it's like, oh, it doesn't matter how much power you got under the hood, it's like, ah, you know what I mean? So you want to avoid virtual memory at all costs. So the more RAM, the merrier. Now, I'm quite fine with 16 gigs of RAM, even in my Mini. So, and I haven't topped it up yet. I mean, even after playing Minecraft for an hour, you know, I was only using close to 11 gigs of RAM after an hour of beating up stones and building stuff, you know, and that's pretty good. You know, I still had, like, you know, a few gigs free there, and I'm good to rock and roll with Minecraft. Video editing will not be an issue if you have 16 gigs of RAM, okay? So, and that's for consumers, okay? Now, the professional market, that's a whole other ball of wax. We're not talking about them today. But, in all, is the Mac Air any good? As a base level machine, I really wouldn't suggest buying it. I would suggest buying an Air, but I would suggest at least a 16 gig of RAM and half a terabyte bare minimum for the hard drive, okay? Whether you're a base or intermediate level user, okay? Now, as far as mine goes, for what I'm going to be using it for, I'm fine because I'm running audio software on it when I need to, and it's only as an emergency. Otherwise, it doesn't get touched. I will run iMovie on it in an emergency for basic video editing, nothing majorly complex. I can't afford the farting and glitching from lack of RAM, okay? So, but it's an emergency only system if something happens to my Mini, okay? That's how I'm looking at it. As far as everything else, I'm going to surf the internet on it every day like I do now. You know, I'm going to watch YouTube videos. I don't stream Netflix, but if I did, I would. And it would be just perfectly fine with 8 gigs of RAM, you know, for doing those tasks. Typing stuff, like new songs. I want to type a song. Well, I'll type it in with this thing. I have no problems. And I can actually get away with, you know, having my email programs open, and I can have, you know, even a YouTube video playing while I'm typing, and it won't interfere, and I'll still have lots of RAM left for those 2 type of programs. You're going to have to learn as you go what you can and can't get away with. I mean, everybody's different on how they use their computers. So keep an eye on that activity monitor too of how much RAM is being used and so on. But also try not to clog up the processors too much, because when you get too much stuff going, it can kind of lag stuff out too, regardless how much RAM you have. So try and run at least one program at a time. Or if you are going to do some typing and keep your email running in the background, that would be perfectly fine, that sort of thing, right? So, as a base level machine, I really strongly don't recommend it as a base level setup. It's just not adequate, and it's not going to last you on the long haul either, for RAM or space for the hard drive. Because the other problem you got, Mac OS updates, they can get big. The last two that I got swallowed up an extra 5 gigs just for the download. I have no idea what it swallowed for the install. Okay? And you're going to get more updates, and you know the average Mac is supported for up to 10 years. So that's a lot of even new full operating systems that you're going to have to go to at least one or two of them. Not by choice either, because when Apple does fully obsolete an OS, it's done. Okay? But you're going to have to go to at least one or two of them over the course of the next 10 years. This thing ain't going to handle it. Okay? It won't handle the amount of RAM draw because you're not going to have much RAM left at all, if any, you know. And you don't want to end up in that situation like many people have in the past, right? Because remember, Apple never used to even give us 8 gigs. They used to start us out with 4, you know, and 2 gigs at one time, or less, right? The least amount of RAM I ever seen in a MacBook Air was 2 gigs of RAM. There's no way it's going to run Monterey. There's no way it's going to run Big Sur. It won't run Catalina. Probably won't even run Mojave with 2 gigs, at least not very well, and that'll depend on the machine. But also remember, MacBook Airs never have been, even from the beginning, able to upgrade the RAM. You could upgrade the hard drive for many years, or SSD, but you could never ever upgrade the RAM after purchase. So, just do yourself a favor if you're going to buy any computers, period, from Apple at this point that are in the first series, not including the new MacBooks, because those things already come with 16 gigs of RAM and half a terabyte, and they are sick machines. I so want that 14-inch really bad, okay? But I don't have any more money left, so I'm kind of yanked. I'll have to wait. But as far as the rest of them go for the first lineup, custom order it, get what you need. 16 by half a terabyte minimum, okay? At the very minimum, and of course your maximum RAM is 16. But the minimum SSD, 512. What about going with an 8 by 512? The answer is still no. You need the RAM too, don't forget. Not just hard drive space. Alright? Now, as much as I really don't like to see people boycott places like, you know, Best Buy and Staples, because they have usually even good sales on. It's local. You can go and pick up the computer, take it right home. The problem is everything that they have there, other than those 2 Mac Pros, which would be very ideal to purchase, they're all base level. Okay, so they're all 8 by 256. They're useless. Okay, realistically, they really are, unless you really know how to deal with things. And even my Mac Air, I'm likely not going to be even keeping it for 5 years. I'm going to want to trade it in or do something with it. I don't know. Maybe I'll turn into an email server eventually if I do keep it. Because there will come a point where it's going to be useless because of the configuration. Anyways, so as a base, where do we put this thing? 3 out of 5. It's the best I can give you, man. If it was a 16 by half or 16 by 1 terabyte, I'd give it a whole 4.5 out of 5 and say, give her. But, you know, that's the thing. We're dealing with the base. And because of that, I don't recommend going with the base unless there's no other option at all. But you know at least now what you're in for with a base level configuration in any of these Macs, whether it's the Mini, the Air, the iMac. You know what you're in for. Don't say I didn't warn you, okay? And please, please try and stay away from virtual memory. And if you can avoid the virtual memory thing, your SSDs in these things are going to last you for years. I mean, I never go into virtual memory on any computer, and I got to tell you, I got SSDs that are still running. You know, no hassles, no glitches, no farting. They run perfectly fine. You know, and I know many other people like myself who run our systems the same. We never get issues with SSDs, you know. So, you know, because we're not going into virtual memory. And you do have to watch the brand of SSD that you buy as well. Some of them it is just all about the name. Kind of like Sony, right? That's a whole other video. And with that, I am out of here. See you later.